There is a secret estate review currently unfolding behind closed doors at Clarence House, and it raises a fascinating question. Is Queen Camilla quietly asking about Prince William's children and their inheritance? What we are looking at are the immediate stakes surrounding the potential control and timing of access to royal properties specifically tied to William's children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. There is a massive curiosity gap opening up right now regarding why Camilla is suddenly so interested in the deeply buried covenants and complex trust language concerning various Windsor-linked residences. On one side, we have a clear personal stake framing for the Queen Consort. She is stepping into a role focused on safeguarding royal estate continuity, ensuring that the monarchy's vast portfolio of historical properties is neatly organized for the future. On the other side, we have Prince William, who is fiercely committed to protecting his family's privacy and securing their future financial autonomy away from the heavy dictatorial hand of the institution. This isn't just about who gets to live in a sprawling country manor. It is about who holds the keys to the future financial and physical independence of the next generation of royals. The idea that the Queen Consort is quietly reviewing property arrangements that directly impact William's children sets the stage for an intense behind-the-scenes negotiation over trust access and ceremonial housing. To fully grasp why this is happening right now, we have to look at the recent pattern of behavior within the royal institution. Ever since King Charles began his reign, there have been necessary and highly scrutinized estate planning disclosures. The public and the media have placed an intense focus on transparency, demanding to know exactly how the royal family manages its wealth, its estates, and its sovereign grants. Because of this heightened scrutiny, senior royals have begun to quietly and methodically review all of their property and trust arrangements. They are leaving no stone unturned, recognizing that any loose ends could lead to massive public relations disasters or complicated legal battles down the line. When we examine the known behaviors of the key players involved, this sudden review makes perfect sense. Queen Camilla has not just been a passive figurehead since taking on her new title. She has taken a surprisingly active role in royal patronage and the intricate logistics of household management. She is heavily involved in the day-to-day administration of the royal estates, organizing how properties are utilized for charitable events, state functions, and family gatherings. She sees the monarchy as a working machine that requires constant maintenance and clear rules. Prince William, however, operates from a completely different philosophy when it comes to his immediate family. He has consistently pushed for private control over family matters. William has made it a core mission to reduce his children's public exposure, shielding George, Charlotte, and Louis from the relentless spotlight that he himself endured as a child. He wants his kids to have as normal a life as possible, and part of that normalcy means not being tied down to rigid institutional expectations or being forced into ceremonial roles simply because their names are written into a centuries-old property deed. Public perception is already shifting as keen observers and legal experts note a distinct uptick in administrative updates and legal reviews occurring within the royal households. The machinery of the monarchy is quietly recalibrating itself. We are seeing evidence of this if we know where to look. Document queues have started surfacing, providing a paper trail for this behind-the-scenes activity. If you look closely at recent companies' house filings or the subtle amendments made to Charity Commission documents, you will find minor but highly notable changes to various household management entities. Over the past few months, these administrative updates have been reported by financial journalists and royal analysts who track the flow of money and assets within the institution. While a change in a trustee name or a small adjustment to a household charity's articles of association might seem incredibly boring to the average person, to those who understand royal wealth, these are massive red flags indicating that the higher-ups are moving pieces around the chessboard. Beyond just the dry financial documents, there have been whispers and insider leaks confirming that a major restructuring is underway. Past reporting has already highlighted that Clarence House conducted a comprehensive property audit immediately after the king's will was finalized and his initial estate plans were set into motion. This wasn't just a simple inventory check to see what paintings were hanging in which rooms. This was a deep dive into the legal plausibility of how these estates are held. There is a long-standing royal precedent where highly secretive trust instruments and complex life tenant arrangements are used to determine exactly who may use certain properties and when they can use them. These aren't houses that you just hand down in a standard will. They are heavily restricted assets bound by centuries of tradition and modern tax avoidance strategies. The audit at Clarence House was designed to figure out exactly what constraints currently exist on Windsor-linked properties, and more importantly, how those constraints will dictate the lives of the royal heirs for decades to come. This brings us directly to the rising tension that is currently building behind the palace palace walls, because this property audit has sparked a very specific, high-stakes negotiation regarding the next generation. The way this negotiation is proceeding reveals exactly how royal power is quietly wielded. Queen Camilla is reportedly requesting that Prince William confirm, on paper and in legally binding trust documents, whether Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis should be explicitly named as future beneficiaries, or if they should be granted formal usage rights for specific Windsor-linked residences. Camilla is approaching this as a necessary step in a staged succession plan. From her perspective, the monarchy cannot afford to leave these massive, historically significant properties in a state of legal limbo. She wants a clear roadmap detailing exactly which child will eventually occupy which residence, ensuring that the Crown's real estate portfolio is securely allocated for the next 50 years. But Prince William has major counterpoints, and he is pushing back with significant force. His primary concern is the danger of exposing his children to crushing institutional obligations before they are even old enough to understand what they are signing up for. William knows all too well that in the royal family, a house is never just a house. If Charlotte or Louis are named as beneficiaries to a grand Windsor estate, that property comes with an unspoken but absolute requirement to perform royal duties in order to justify their occupancy. Furthermore, William is acutely aware of the potential tax and charitable implications. Many of these royal properties are heavily intertwined with charitable trusts, and being a beneficiary means becoming legally entangled in a web of public scrutiny, tax audits, and institutional oversight. By tying his children to these properties now, William fears a complete loss of control over how his children use the properties, when they use them, and whether they can ever choose to simply walk away and live a private life. He wants to delay these decisions to preserve their freedom, but he is running into a formidable administrative wall. The subtle leverage in this situation rests entirely in Queen Camilla's hands. Because she has taken on such a dominant role in household administration, she has direct daily access to the exact legal advisors, trust managers, and senior courtiers who are drafting these succession documents. She doesn't need to make a public declaration or pick a visible fight with William. She can quietly influence the language of the draft documents from the inside. By steering the administrative priorities of the king's household, Camilla can force William to the negotiating table simply because the lawyers are waiting for an answer to finalize the estate plans. This leads to a fascinating and highly consequential question. If Camilla wins this behind-the-scenes negotiation, which property could be designated, and what would it mean for William's carefully crafted family home plans? This brings us to the core revelation and the absolute climax of this unfolding situation. The major development here is that a low-profile, highly confidential legal review at Clarence House has directly led Camilla to ask William for a private, formalized agreement right now. She wants a definitive answer on whether his 3 children will receive designated use rights or official beneficiary status for specific, highly coveted royal properties. For instance, we are talking about major Windsor residences that are traditionally reserved for senior heirs and working royals. Camilla's request is being brilliantly framed by her team as basic administrative housekeeping. The argument is that they are simply tidying up the king's estate to avoid any future disputes among the family members when Charles is no longer on the throne. It is presented as a favor to William, a way to prevent his children from fighting over housing decades from now. However, beneath this veneer of simple bureaucratic housekeeping, this request carries incredibly real, permanent financial and status implications for the monarchy's youngest generation. If William agrees and allows George, Charlotte, and Louis to be named in these trusts, it securely cements their institutional ties. It guarantees their access to the highest tier of royal housing and secures their status as working members of the firm. It permanently embeds them into the machinery of the crown. But if William holds his ground and declines to name them as beneficiaries right now, he actively preserves his parental control and maintains total flexibility for his children's future. By keeping their names off the trust documents, he leaves the door open for Charlotte and Louis to pursue entirely private lives, free from the golden handcuffs of a Windsor estate. This is a monumental choice masquerading as routine paperwork, a decision that will quietly dictate whether the next generation of royals are bound to the institution by their very homes, or if they are finally given the freedom to choose their own paths. To understand exactly why this quiet power struggle is happening right now, we have to look deeply into the ingrained institutional motive that drives the modern monarchy. Ensuring clear property succession is not just about hoarding wealth, it is entirely about the survival of the institution. The palace machinery desperately wants to prevent any messy, highly public disputes over who gets to live where when the time comes to shift the crown. They need to preserve absolute continuity for state occasions, diplomatic hosting obligations, and the seamless projection of royal authority. Queen Camilla's motive in all of this aligns perfectly with that institutional survival. As the king's consort, she has a vested interest in establishing orderly, ironclad estate arrangements. She has seen firsthand how family infighting can damage the crown's reputation, and she understandably prefers that the heirs have strict formal ties to certain properties to ensure they remain anchored to the firm. Prince William's motive, on the other hand, is intensely personal and fiercely protective. He is fighting tooth and nail to protect his children from enforced ceremonial residency. He knows that accepting a grand estate means accepting the ribbon cuttings, the patronages, and the relentless media scrutiny that pays for its upkeep. He wants to keep all options open for completely private family living arrangements, especially for Charlotte and Louis, who will not inherit the throne and should theoretically have the chance to step away. The practical reasoning behind all this maneuvering comes down to the simple fact that royal property is rarely owned outright by individuals. It is almost exclusively managed through an archaic labyrinthine network of trusts, crown estates, and life tenancy agreements. Making small, seemingly innocuous changes to these legal instruments right now avoids unimaginably complex legal battles later, and conveniently, it perfectly aligns with recent public demands for greater royal financial transparency. But the impact and consequence of these hidden negotiations will ripple out across the royal family for decades. In the short term, what we are going to see are quiet, tense negotiations continuing behind the closed doors of Clarence House and Kensington Palace. There will likely be subtle amendments made to trust documents or usage agreements, and we can absolutely expect a sudden surge in media interest if any of these confidential filings accidentally leak to the financial press. In the medium term, the consequences are genuinely life-altering for the children. If George, Charlotte, and Louis are formally tied to these properties today, they will undoubtedly face massive future expectations to use them as bases for full-time royal duties tomorrow. They will become properties of the state in all but name. But if they are not explicitly tied to these estates, the family retains a much greater degree of choice over their own destinies. Looking at the long term, whatever is decided in these meetings right now sets a massive historical precedent. It establishes exactly how much estate control senior royals can exercise over the next generation's assets, their public roles, and their personal freedoms. It forces us to ask a looming, highly consequential question. Will this be a simple housekeeping fix or the start of a quiet reshaping of how royal property binds future heirs? The reason this entire scenario is so incredibly plausible is that it is firmly grounded in the recent observable behavior of the key players. Following the King's Estate settlement and the radically increased scrutiny on royal finances, palace officials would logically want to tidy up all related holdings. It makes perfect bureaucratic sense. Furthermore, it perfectly tracks with the shifting power dynamics we have already witnessed over the past year. Camilla has demonstrably accumulated much more administrative influence, while William has fiercely prioritized control and privacy for his immediate family above all else. When we look at the institutional facts, we know that royal properties are governed through these exact types of trusts and use agreements. We know that small, quiet administrative changes made today can have outsized structural effects on the monarchy of tomorrow. This situation fits perfectly into a low-drama, high-stakes reality. This is a bureaucratic, entirely plausible, and highly consequential internal negotiation over access and inheritance. It is not a screaming match in a drawing room. It is a quiet war fought with fountain pens and legal clauses. It speaks directly to the curiosity we all have about whether the royal children's future homes and lives are being quietly decided without their knowledge. It validates the concerns of those who worry about privacy or institutional pressure, confirming exactly how property ties can destroy a child's future autonomy. For anyone who suspects that palace insiders are quietly arranging the board for the next 50 years of royal succession, this is the ultimate validation. It is a legal and financial insider reveal that could spill out into the public record at any moment, changing the family dynamic forever. Should the royal family lock these properties to the heirs right now to protect the institution, or should they back off and let William decide privately for his own children? Let me know down in the comments and predict which way you think William will lean under this immense administrative pressure. Make sure to subscribe for updates, because I promise I will bring you a full follow-up video the second any of these documents surface, or if a confidential legal filing finally appears in the public domain.